Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Curious Realms continuing coverage of Turning the Tide 9/11 Justice right here in Washington, D.C. We are so happy to be joined by Ted Walter, who is with the International Center for 9/11 Justice, so the people who brought us out to this amazing conference. I want to begin, Ted, by thanking you for having us out. This is, like I told you last night, a community that I've been very adjunct to for a long time, connected cursorily with a few people, but even in preparation for this, deep diving into the topic, having Richard on beforehand, this is a topic that my mind has changed in numerous ways over the many years. And the fact that even today, there was numerous presentations where one person was presenting one thing and then somebody else is presenting something totally conflicting to that right after. And the fact, I was having a conversation with somebody earlier, the fact that everybody is still in the room, listening to both sides of the argument with open hearts, open minds. That's what this is about. It's so beautiful to see that in this community, because in many communities, UFO, UAP, paranormal, when you disagree with it, like, you just leave the room. You don't come back till the speaker's done. You know, and to hear people listening to dissenting opinions is a beautiful, beautiful thing when it comes to research. How did you get involved with the cause for 9/11 justice, Ted?
Sure. Well, Chris, thank you as well so much for coming out. It's been wonderful to have you here interviewing all of our speakers and organizers. So, and thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think you're referring to day 3 of this conference, which is a presentations and discussion about the attack on the Pentagon.
Yeah.
And you took the word out of my mouth. Beautiful. I was going to use to see these presenters who poured years of their time, their lives into researching what happened at the Pentagon, giving presentations with very conflicting points of view, and doing it respectfully.
That's right.
With minimal to no innuendo, and the audience is there listening intently. And I feel like it's been a very educational day so far. Yeah. And we're not that different from other movements and other research communities. There has been a lot of contention there. And that's why I think this conference, what's happening today, is so important, is that we're kind of bringing all these researchers together to share and discuss their points of view.
Yeah.
And I think the public's going to benefit a lot from it, and future researchers. So in terms of my entry into this cause, I entered into this cause when I moved to New York City in August of 2001 to start college at NYU.
Oh, wow.
And September 11th, 2001 was my first real day of classes. I was studying theater at NYU, studying to become a director.
Wow.
And I walked into my first class ever at college at 8:30 a.m. So about 16 minutes before the North Tower was struck. And funnily enough, or oddly enough, I should say, I was in that class for almost 2 hours without knowing what was going on. And our teacher got pulled out of the room at about 10 o'clock. It was a movement class. He got pulled out at about 10. So this is like an hour and 15 minutes into what was going on. The administration told him what was going on, and he said, okay. And then he went back into the room and finished the class for another 20 minutes, sat us down at like 10:20. Bunch of 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds just moved to New York City, being told that planes have hit the World Trade Center. I walked out, and this is in Greenwich Village, so not that far from the very lower Manhattan.
Yeah. And
just thousands of people pouring up Lafayette Street, where the public theater is. Some people might know it. St. Mark's Place, Astor Place, I should say. And it was. And by that time I walked out, it was probably about 10:30. So the entire one side of the sky was just covered in dust and smoke. The towers had just come. Second tower probably just come down. And I remember going back to my dorm room that day and just watching all day on TV and, and being like, well, first of all, I remember even being in the room and thinking, when I was sitting down and somebody said a plane has also hit the Pentagon, and I asked what time was that? And they said it was, it was already known that was later. And I was like, how was the plane not stopped? And, and I remember them looking on TV and saying, my God, is that what it looks like when a building comes down? Like, I wasn't doubting it, but I was just puzzled. Puzzled and surprised. Like that's what it looks like when buildings collapse. Wow. But something didn't feel quite right. Anyway, So I was already very political. I was 19 years old.
Mm.
I was very anti-war. I went to I actually grew up high school overseas. Had a lot of friends who were very critical of let's say the U.S. empire, even in high school. You know,
Yeah.
and so like to me it was like blowback. That was how I interpreted
Yeah.
it. But very quickly I started to within a year or two I started to see this as they probably let it happen because now they're getting to do everything that they want. Right.
Anything they want.
Anything they want.
Yeah.
You know?
It was almost a carte blanche afterward where it was like, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Any means necessary.
And, yeah. And so that became my like just default assumption. You know, they let it happen on purpose. And even I remember when the 9/11 Commission report came out in 2004, I was like, I'll bet you they're not telling the truth that they let it happen on purpose.
Yeah.
And then in 2000, and I remember one moment, like it's probably 03 or 04, somebody said to me, you know, there's this theory that the towers were like that there were explosives in the towers, and I was like, and it was not explained to me well, I would say. From what I can vaguely remember, and I was like, that doesn't like somebody said basement bombs in the basement. And I said, no, but the collapse started at the top, something like that. So
yeah.
And then in 2006, spring of 2006, just things started popping up everywhere. That's really 2006 was like the year that the 9/11 Truth Movement really kind of exploded. You know, the NIST report was finished in 2005, late 2005, and so the researchers who are already out there had something to actually scrutinize.
Yeah,
and say this doesn't add up. They're not explaining why this building actually came down. You know, the top. They didn't even try to explain how the top could actually crush through the 90 stories of structure below it, and so on. And Stephen Jones published his paper. Loose Change second edition was out, and I just that was May of 2006. I spent about a week researching everything I could find, just obsessed, and I had a temp job at that time, and I was sitting there like doing 9/11 research while I was supposed to be doing some stupid administrative work. Anyway, and I was in shock. For about a week or so, I was going around the subway, thinking everybody is just in a fantasy. Living in a fantasy. Like nobody here, very few people that are on this train with me in New York City subway understand what really happened in their city.
It was a very Matrix moment in those years.
Yeah. And anyway, a lot of people learn this truth, and people react to it in a variety of ways. And for me, and every way is legitimate. For me, little did I know that I would spend the next almost 20 years of my life working on this issue, but I was deeply moved by it, and I just dedicated myself to it. And I'm not going to go through the details of the next 19 years, but just generally got involved for most of the last 18, 19 years. I've been fortunate enough to do this, maybe 15 out of those 19 years. I've been fortunate enough to do this on a professional level, either organizing with the New York City 9/11 ballot initiative in 2008, 2009. And then keeping this group going that we started called the New York City Coalition for Accountability Now, NYC Can. I started volunteering with AE 9/11 Truth. I went to grad school in Berkeley from 2010 to 2012, and but started volunteering for AE at that time because they were out in Berkeley. And then I worked at AE 9/11 Truth from 2015 to 2.5 years ago. And now in the last 2.5 years, I left AE 2.5 years ago, and during that time worked for 7 years with Richard, which was wonderful, Richard Gage. But then launched this new organization called the International Center for 9/11 Justice. It was previously called the International Center for 9/11 Studies and had been dormant for about 10 years, but we relaunched this organization. And so we do a broad array of things: research, education, and action, whether that's political action or legal action. And we are affiliated with the Journal of 9/11 Studies and the 9/11 Consensus Panel, which are two other groups or entities that have existed in the movement for a long time. And so our goal here is to do both new research, cutting edge research, do the best job we can of presenting the existing research that's been done over the last 20 plus years, and then bring that, also look at things that we can do to raise public awareness on a mass scale. Making films, doing things like organizing this conference, Turning the Tide.
Absolutely.
Political outreach. Legal stuff like helping the family of Jeff Campbell get a new inquest into his death. So we do all the above.
And those things are all massively important, as we've said in numerous parts of these interviews. The idea of it coming up on 25 years now is a huge thing. We spoke about that together last night. The fact that there is that gap where there's a huge cognitive dissonance point in people's mind where when a tragedy like that happens, like when Kennedy was assassinated, it took a long time for the average person to be able to accept that there may have been more than one shooter. Despite any evidence, whatever, there's a lot more evidence that points to the fact that there's more than just one. But it took a long time for people to be comfortable with that fact and to be open-hearted, open-minded enough to let that data in, you know, because when something tragic like that happens, you immediately build walls of protection in your mind and in your heart, you know. So those things, especially if, like Mr. Campbell, you were a family member of a victim, or if you, like Mr. Lawyer, who was here speaking, are a firefighter and first responder, even if you were local like you and just saw it happen in front of you, there is a point of disbelief that happens that may take a long time for you to A, heal from, B, allow new data into your system with it. And we are just burgeoning on that point right now at 25 years next year. So the fact that you guys have fully reignited this in this way with the Center for 9/11 Justice, taking things to, trying to take things to Congress, getting people like Senator Dennis Kucinich involved, that kind of stuff. Like we say with the disclosure movement, you're never going to see a gurney with a tube and an alien body and a blanket over it be wheeled out. You didn't see a missile get wheeled out with Ollie North. What you saw was a lot of legal stuff. The fact that y'all had a lawyer talking about FOIA and subpoenas and the power of them and how to utilize them as the crowbar by which to get this justice, to start finding more data. That's massively important. And I think that's what people forget. You know, most people sadly have the idea of justice as being like, well, you know, we're going to have like $1 billion payout for the victims' families, things like that's not what it's about. It's about accountability, about peeling back the fact of, hey, if these things fell by fire, then how come none of the fire codes for buildings of that size or that type have changed? Things like that, legal things.
Yeah. I want to say when we talk about justice being in our name, certainly accountability is a part of it. I think but even beyond that, our definition of 9/11 justice is way broader than that. What we mean is, we mean essentially an awakening and a spiritual sort of truth and reconciliation, where the entire world, and certainly the United States, but by and large the entire world, comes to terms with what happened that day and with the role that deception plays in our modern life. And then just the movement towards a much more peaceful and cooperative existence, which I believe is possible. I don't think it has to be one empire versus another empire. So we interpret justice around 9/11 in the broadest sense possible, and it's ultimately about peace, self-determination, freedom, and human connection. And I think that exposing 9/11 has a unique potential to bring about a revolution, a sort of spiritual and cultural revolution. And I think that's why so many people gravitate to the issue, and it's why so many people are scared of it too, perhaps. But anyway, I'm going on and on, but
that's okay. No, this is your platform today, not mine. So feel free to go on and on, because it's something that I think it needs to be gone and on about. And no different than any victims of the Epstein files or things like that. These truths are hard. They hurt. When you pull the Band-Aid off, the scab's coming with it. It's gonna happen. The wound will be reopened. But you've got to do that in order to properly heal. You've got to do that in order to move forward with a better light of truth for the next generation, and to make sure that these things don't happen again. And if they do, the people are held accountable.
Absolutely.
And that's just it. Sadly, those things sometimes come through interminable legal means. And you have to leverage the legal system and get people like Dennis Kucinich, who may not be serving as a senator, but still has pull with senators,
Congressman,
or congressmen, can
Yep.
still rally people behind a cause and be like, there's new data. Let's have a new hearing.
Yeah. We have to use every means at our disposal that we
Absolutely.
can possibly muster, that we have the resources for. But I think, it is what is ultimately going to drive the change. We have to. This is not to dismiss every legal avenue, because I've been a major proponent of this. Those things do cause gains in legal. Like we may well succeed in getting a new inquest into the death of Jeff Campbell in the North Tower. But I think it's about awareness and
That's right.
openness to this information, and a social. Well, the name of this conference is Turning the Tide. And we are in the midst of that. Like we are. And this isn't called the turning of the tide. It's called turning the tide, because we are making it happen.
That's right.
We've been making it happen for the last many years, and the tide is just in that point, maybe at an inflection where it's starting to actually start flowing in the other way. And we're seeing people like Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin come forward and say, these are legitimate questions. They deserve to be answered.
Absolutely.
The families, the firefighters, every American, deserves answers to these questions. These should not be marginalized as conspiracy theory. And so he said that he wants to use his committee that he chairs, the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, to be a forum for these questions to be asked, and for the answers that we do have currently, the irrefutable answers we have, to be presented to the American people. And this would have been unthinkable even like 2 years ago, honestly. That we've been chipping away, but the amount of progress that's happened in the last 2 years has been remarkable. When I was speaking last week with Clayton Morris, of Redacted, who's was kind enough to live stream this whole conference, I told him that I actually dated back to an interview that he did with Tucker Carlson in the spring of 2023 on Redacted, where Tucker, they're already friends. They were friends from Fox News. Tucker said, "Why can't I question Building 7? I'm an American. I have a right to question this." And I think that caused a tectonic shift. I think that many people saw that, many people heard that, and they said, "Oh wow, Tucker Carlson's now talking about Building 7," and they started to feel a sense of permission to also question it. I think this would have happened at some point anyway. I think that things were already that was the direction things were going in. We could, I think ever since COVID and the amount of the large percentage of the public that questioned COVID and the independent media infrastructure that grew up, I think, in response to it. I mean, there was independent media for the previous 10 years, but I think the independent media really blossomed post 2020. And all the shows that we've been on for the past few years, most of these shows didn't exist before 2020. So anyway, that caused a tectonic shift. A few months later, Jimmy Dore mentions Building 7, and people in 9/11 Truth are like, "Oh my God, Jimmy Dore mentioned Building 7." And now Jimmy Dore, that's old news. No big deal if Jimmy Dore mentions Building 7. That's every other week. So the progress over the past 2 years has been remarkable. And I think it's going to continue to accelerate. I mean, at a minimum, it's going to stay at the same rate. But it could be exponential. I think it could be, and as you probably know, your viewers may know, Tucker Carlson is planning to release a 5-part documentary series on 9/11 very soon. I think he was going to release it on the anniversary, but he postponed it because of the tragic passing of Charlie Kirk. So I'm incredibly optimistic, and I've always said, if there's a 5% chance of us getting to where we want to be, meaning mass awareness, critical mass awareness around 9/11, I'm going to stay in the game. Until a few years ago, I probably would have rated our chances at under 10%, but that was enough for me to keep going. Now I feel like our chances of getting to something, a major awakening, reaching a critical mass, very high. I'm not going to put a number on it right now, but I'm feeling really good. So at the same time, my heart continues to ache for that it's taken this long, and the amount of destruction and damage and lives lost, and waste of resources that's happened over the last 24 years is tragic. But I still believe that we can correct the record on this and turn our country and our world in a better direction.
Absolutely. And that's just it. That has to be the end goal. Is the enlightenment, the The idea of bringing everybody together in a unified view of humanity like that, because otherwise, yeah, you start to dehumanize victims. You start to dehumanize first responders. The idea that first responders weren't listened to in the NIST report is as somebody who regularly talks about the scientific method, where it's like, observation, first thing, you have a bunch of trained observers on site who say, I heard and saw this, yet still you totally ignore the data set.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
Those are some of the raging issues that you have.
Yeah. I could get into all sorts of
Absolutely.
detail and nerd
we've gotten into all those details over the last few days.
Yep.
And that's just it. Having you on here to anchor this, I think, is really important because it really does bring together cohesively the idea behind this conference. Because just to echo what we said at the beginning, the idea that there are dissenting opinions at this conference. They were all sitting at a table answering round table questions about their dissenting. It was like presentation, dissenting presentation, another dissenting presentation. Now let's all get together and talk about why we dissent.
Beautiful.
And it's amazing. It's amazing. I attend a lot of conferences, man, and I have never seen that. Where like, no, if we're going to talk Bigfoot, we're either talking ape or woo, one of the two. It's rare that you're going to have one back to back and then have both of them together to openly debate like that. So it's a great
it's first
thing
for us too, I have to say.
Well, it's
But
fantastic.
we're turning a new page.
It's fantastic. And once again, to see the community response to that, where it wasn't like half the room left, you know, like, absolutely not. I'm not listening to that guy. Everybody stayed in the room. Everybody was willing to listen. Everybody's willing to have the conversation. And that is what it takes. And it's great to see you guys already, even having relaunched this and having this focus, already having that response within the community is great. And I think that's a huge part, is that there is a bilateral and bipartisan want for this, as opposed to a lot of topics that are very politically divided, stuff like that. But it takes a long time to bring that to a head. And the prime example I give is the firefighters and the first responders. It took a long time for them to be heard by Congress in that kind of way, which just recently happened, like all of a couple years ago. You know, it was like, man, that's almost 20 years. These guys have been suffering with medical conditions, things like, and you're making them prove that, like, here's my medical record before, here it is after. It's not rocket math. This is where my health changed, was right after this event. But it took a lot of people in the halls of Congress a long time to be willing to hear that case, to be willing to bring it forth, and to be willing to say, and that was a huge step in and of itself, to say, yes, something happened to you.
And it takes them minutes and hours to pass bills, appropriating billions of dollars for war.
Absolutely.
On the country.
Absolutely.
Advice,
Yeah.
Why that is, we'll spend 10 minutes.
Vested parties who invest in both parties. That's why that happens, is people like, the Kochs and stuff like that, who are like, we're going to give equally to both sides so that we hedge our bets.
But $200 billion for Ukraine, and we'll fight for years about a few billion for first responders on 9/11.
So we've got you for another few minutes because, of course, you're one of the heads. Conference is getting ready to restart. Where are things going for the future? How can people who are already involved and behind this, how can they begin to expose family members who may be reticent? How can they begin to expose friends who may be reticent to this data? How can they begin that process of slowly bringing that truth to light to people?
Well, I think, first of all, I think now is the time when people can start to feel really comfortable to come out if they've been in hiding, or that they've stepped back from talking to their friends, like they've annoyed their friends, their family about it. Come out of hiding if that's where you've been, and just start talking to people openly about it again, because I think we've got so much momentum behind us, and I think people in general out there in the zeitgeist, the collective consciousness of our society is opening. Our mind is opening, And so people are like, I talk to people all the time because people ask me what I do for work.
Mm.
You know, in my community where I live in the Hudson Valley, an hour north of New York City, I would say only 1 out of 10 people at this point that I talk to about 9/11 are like, oh my God, that's what you do? That's like in a bad way.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. In a recoil
Yeah,
way.
in a recoil way, I'd say it's either curiosity and open-mindedness to total support. And I think, I think that's the direction that we're going in.
Yeah.
I think with this conference, this 24th anniversary, we've got a remarkable speech by Senator Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin, saying how he wants to hold hearings in the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations.
Yeah.
We've got a remarkable speech by former Congressman Dennis Kucinich, Democrat from Ohio. So use those speeches to say, look, A, this is real. This might not have seemed like a cause that could possibly be successful until this past year, maybe.
Yep.
And that's maybe why a lot of people don't get involved, is they see that it's right, but they're like, there's no way you're going to overcome the powers that be with this. And so those types of speeches can maybe give people a little confidence that, oh, maybe this could go somewhere.
Yeah.
Or simply just legitimize it in their eyes. If they're, if it's somebody who leans conservative and they see Senator Ron Johnson talking about, we need to reinvestigate 9/11, these are legitimate questions. Or somebody who's a progressive or a liberal who maybe really respects Dennis Kucinich.
Yeah.
These are highly respected individuals and, very obviously very intelligent and eloquent. Share those speeches.
Yeah.
So I think this conference gives people, and then just the presentations throughout the conference, beyond those two, Kurt Weldon, could go on and on, Tony Schaefer, some of the more technical presentations, and then go to the websites that, share the websites that we have. Ours is ic911.org.
Yep.
IC911. Richard Gage 9/11 is another one. Richard is the steadfastness his for the last 20 years, and I was privileged to work with him directly for 7 years, and it's actually been a joy to work with him for the past couple of months. I'm putting this conference together.
Yeah.
Be working together again, reunited. It's been a lot of fun, and there's going to be a lot more work to do in the months and years ahead with him and with all the partners that help put this conference on. And throughout the 9/11 Truth Movement, and it's going to grow fast. As I said, I think we're going to see some exponential growth, and so I just want people to feel optimistic. If you're in this movement, you've probably become really jaded and cynical. I don't blame you at all. You see the worst of society.
Yeah,
your eyes are open.
Yeah,
and so you understand how powerful the forces are. The powers are that be. But I think just start to have a little hope.
Yeah.
And at the same time, a lot of people do have hope. That's why a lot of people are so active. So let's all be encouraged by what's going on here.
Yeah.
And just don't be afraid to share the information, to raise your voice. And even, when we have people like Senator Ron Johnson and Kucinich and Kurt Weldon speaking out, that'll help get the attention of other political leaders.
Yep.
And so those people they're going to be paying attention. And Tucker Carlson, many people, particularly on the right, but even across the political spectrum, look to what Tucker is saying. So they're going to have very open mind now once, just keep talking, because people are going to be more and more open to what you have to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to thank you once again for a great interview, an amazing conference. This has been a thoroughly enjoyable experience. It's been great to talk to so many amazing researchers, so many different opinions, and the experiencers like yourself who were there. Before we let you go, one last time, look at the camera, let everybody know where they can go to get involved, where they can go to find out more about the cause of the International Center for 9/11 Justice.
Absolutely. IC911.org. There's incredible information on our website, the Journal of 9/11 Studies, the 9/11 Consensus Panel, the film that we released 2 years ago called Peace, War, and 9/11 is the final interview by Professor Graham McQueen before he passed away 2 years ago. Very powerful film. And I actually I highlighted Richard Gage 9/11, but I also want to highlight our partners at Firefighters for 9/11 Truth, led by Eric Lawyer and Raul Angulo. Incredible group of gentlemen, and their ranks are growing very quickly. So if you are a member of the fire service or a first responder, an EMT, get involved with that group. They're going to be doing some very important organizing over the next year. Just keep opening your voice, speaking out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Once again, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it, Ted. while you are online checking out everything from the International Center for 9/11 Justice, as well as their affiliates and fellow researchers, make sure to stop on by Curious Realm. CuriousRealm.com is where you can like, follow, subscribe. That is where you can find all of our coverage from amazing events like this one. Thank you so much for tuning in to our coverage here in Washington, D.C. of the Turning the Tide 9/11 Justice Conference. Remember, everybody, it's your open hearts, your open minds that make the conversation. And without that conversation, humanity does not march forward. So take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and stay curious. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. The key to good science is good research. At the heart of good research is a good data set. With the field observation and encounter log from Curious Research, you can easily keep track of your investigative information all in one place, making it easier to review cases and readily see comparisons and contrasts between them. Whether out in the woods squatching, in a back room gathering EVPs, or using high-tech gear to track UFO, UAP activity, this easy-to-carry, pocket-sized scientific data log is the perfect companion for any field researcher. You can find your copy of the Curious Research Field Observation and Encounter Log at Amazon.com or visit the official Curious Realm store at CuriousRealm.com/store to reserve your copy for yourself, your family, or a mind that you want to open. That website again is CuriousRealm.com/store.